This is On the Record for the week of September 22nd, 2025. Now, we're covering some things that you might have missed, but also some things to look forward to here in Bizarro America. So, things like Charlie Kirk's Stadium Memorial, the going rate to bribe officials, and what it costs to get into the country these days, a strange economic trendline divergence. We've got headlines from Vanity Fair, Jacobin, and Truth Out, and then some quick takes and some recommendations. This is UNFTR, and we are on the record. UNFTR. Let's kick things off with Max Notes to ease in today. Now, as you might have seen between football games yesterday, more than 70,000 white people and Ben Carson filled the State Farm Arena in Arizona for Charlie Kirk's memorial. Not only was the stadium at capacity, but tens of thousands more attendees had to watch from outside or from remote locations. This was one of the largest politically oriented gatherings in U.S. history. I say politically oriented because it's kind of difficult to classify what this was. I mean, it was obviously primarily a memorial for Charlie Kirk and his family, which puts it on par with Ronald Reagan's memorial to set a record. But it was also a faith gathering and a political rally. I mean, no matter how you characterize it, though, it was uniquely American. Now, there was nothing going on that was pressing in D.C., apparently, because virtually the entire cabinet was in attendance along with the president and his family. Even Elon Musk was there. But for me, the chilling part came from Stephen Miller, who called for a holy war of sorts in the least coded white supremacist language imaginable.
You have no idea the dragon you have awakened. You have no idea how determined we will be to save this civilization, to save the West, to save this republic.
Good Lord. You know, I don't know who this guy's going after, but these guys better watch out. What's that? Oh, like I said, these people better watch out because that very talented, handsome, and effective spiritual warrior for God, Stephen Miller, is coming for them. Moving right along. Now, in the midst of the celebration of Kirk's life, none other than Fucker Tarleson supplied some unintentional comedy while offering an analogy from Scripture, likening the attempt to silence Jesus Christ to Charlie Kirk's murder. And by the way, this was a theme throughout almost the entire event. Anyway, the comedy came with good old Tucker's signature giggle that we've all come to know and love.
Let's go to the videotape.
And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
For anyone curious about the etymology of the word douche chills, they heard this and then promptly went, and douche chills was born. All right, let's talk inflation. There was a bizarre social media moment when the news broke on MSNBC that Herman Goering, Tom Homan, the border czar, was under investigation for allegedly pocketing $50,000 in cash in 2024 from FBI agents posing as businessmen looking to secure border control contracts.
Trump's Department of Justice shut down an investigation into Tom Homan, according to multiple people familiar with the probe and internal documents reviewed by MSNBC.
And then former Fox host Megyn Kelly, whose transformation into Ann Coulter is nearly complete, took to X to say, quote, "We do not care. Don't bother Tom Homan. He's a national treasure." The most honest words that Megyn Kelly may have ever spoken. We do not care. So 50 boxes of ziti gets you a private prison in the United States, or at least it did in 2024. But in today's story of inflation, guess how much getting a job now costs if you're not a genuine red-blooded American born America from America? Well, according to a new executive order from Donald Trump, H-1B visas, which are not hepatitis shots that you pay for with a credit card, are now available for $100,000. That's right. Are you a highly skilled worker from another country looking to practice your valuable trade here in the United States? Well, for the low, low price of $100,000, you can come here and give us all your knowledge before we deport you right back to where you came from. That should serve us really well in the battle for AI supremacy. All right, we have a lot of economic data releases coming this week, from retail sales and inventory and housing starts to initial jobless claims and core inflation as well. So we'll be sure to catch up on all of those. And we also get to hear remarks from around the Fed world, from the New York Fed chair to the first speech from newly appointed sycophant and architect of Trump's disastrous tariff regime, Stephen Miran, shown here sheepishly admitting that it was he who cut the cheese at the last FOMC meeting. You know, he's already distinguished himself by being the lone dissenting voice on the Fed's decision to cut rates by 25 basis points, because he argued the cuts should have been a lot steeper. And he claims that these beliefs are his and his alone. And there was nobody that told him what to say, even though he'd been at the Fed for about a nanosecond before making that incredibly well-informed decision. Now, as far as the releases, the ones to watch will be existing home sales and core PCE year over year. So make sure to check us out over on the Midas channel, because we'll hit all of it. Of course, this all pales in comparison to the announcement from the Oval Office later today. RFK has discovered the cause of autism. Tell him that it's Tylenol. God, what a time to be alive. All right, it's time for headlines. So here's the deal with headlines. These aren't the kind of topical headlines of the day. These are usually longer, thoughtful, progressive articles that we curate each week in the newsletter. And one of the most important things that we try to do is to uplift authentically progressive voices and outlets. Now, this first one is from a mainstream outlet, but it's from an amazing writer and public intellectual named Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with him, and he hits a bullseye with this piece about the sad and untimely death of Charlie Kirk. In it, he skillfully identifies the hypocrisy from all sides without managing to appear shill or even provocative. It's a measured and intellectual take on the media circus and America's inability to just call balls and strikes. And he saves his most pointed remarks for New York Times columnist Ezra Klein. Here's an excerpt. What are we to make of a man who called for the execution of the American president and then was executed himself? What are we to make of an NFL that, on one hand, encourages us to, quote, end racism, and on the other, urges us to commemorate an unreconstructed white supremacist? And what of the writers, the thinkers, and the pundits who cannot separate the great crime of Kirk's death from the malignancy of his public life? Can they truly be so ignorant to the words of a man that they have so rushed to memorialize? I don't know. But the most telling detail in Klein's column was that, for all his praise, there was not a single word in the piece from Kirk himself. End quote. Hey, while we're at it, why don't we keep piling on Ezra Klein? Klein has been making the rounds this year promoting Abundance, the book that he co-authored with Derek Thompson. Now, he's taken a lot of flack from the left for seeming to lay blame on bloated Democrat bureaucracies rather than our handcrafted billionaire society. So instead of relitigating it here, this Jacobin article takes the abundance agenda with a twist. Instead of politicians tackling the bureaucratic mess, which is fair, and it's a totally fair thing to call out, what if unions were to lead the way? Turns out they might already be doing so in California. Quote, overall, this UAW report is an all too rare example of a union getting serious about a vision for industrial policy and putting real legislation on the table. While other important clean energy sources like nuclear power and geothermal are left out, the policy proposals play to California's natural strengths and build on already existing successful initiatives, end quote. And rounding out the NIMBY-focused articles from this week, we have a related take from Truthout that talks about how the tech industry is heading south to build massive data centers where regulations are looser and jobs are needed. But there are a few catches. These power-hungry, water-guzzling facilities are an environmental disaster, which means that tech companies are also looking to build in marginalized communities that lack representation and resources to fight back against them. So as usual, it comes with the promise of job creation. That's the core of the argument. And we're going to build them and create jobs in these areas. But it's a ruse, because it takes a shockingly low number of employees to actually run these giants. From the article, quote, "Big tech promises thousands of jobs when data center projects are announced. However, in reality, data centers create very few permanent jobs. Even Microsoft admits that a data center can run with less than 50 technicians. According to a Business Insider analysis, tax breaks given to developers can amount over time to more than $2 million for every permanent full-time job at an operational data center." All right, it's time for a killer left take of the week. KLTW goes to Jeremy Scahill of Dropsite News, featured here answering colleague Ryan Grimm's question as to whether the Trump administration would consider assassinating Venezuelan President Maduro. More important than this speculation is how Scahill frames the difference between our horrific covert past under figures like Alan Dulles versus how openly, carelessly, and brazenly the Trump team has to actualize the dangerous off-the-cuff threats of this president. Let's take a look.
It feels very 1950s right now in this administration. The problem, part of the problem for this administration is that Trump has a big mouth. And I'm sure that, Dulles is the legendary evil director of the CIA is sort of turning over in his grave, watching their operational security, the whole signal scandal that now nobody ever talks about and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't put anything past this administration at that level. We are seeing a very different version of Trump in this term than we saw in his first term. He has totally gotten rid of the wing of his movement that believed in some form of U.S. isolationism. What we're seeing now is the naked face of a couple hundred plus years of American history, the ugliest components of it being manifested in this administration. And so I wouldn't put it past Trump to try to assassinate a foreign head of state.
Now, side note, if you're not totally familiar or just marginally familiar with Scahill's work, before Dropsite, he was one of the co-founders of The Intercept. He started out actually as an intern for Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! And then went on to an incredible career as a war correspondent and author. I highly recommend his books Blackwater and Dirty Wars. And if you can find it, check out his Dirty Wars documentary as well. I've always said there are writers and journalists, and then there are war correspondents. They're just a different breed. All right, chart of the week. I covered this one for Midas Touch. This is the leading economic index from the Conference Board, and it's been one of the most reliable indicators of recessions, if not the most, over a long period of time. And this chart highlights how difficult it is to understand the current economic conditions in the United States. So let's take a look at it. You can see from the chart that the primary line, it's called the LEI, which is where the economy is headed, diverges greatly from the coincident line, which is the CEI, and that's where the economy currently stands. Now, the LEI shows an economy headed for freefall, while the CEI is showing persistent growth. This is highly unusual. These lines will separate just prior to a recession, but it's usually for a very short separation. Now, the reason the CEI is continuing to move forward is due to the weight of financials. See, the CEI includes a basket of factors that the board evaluates, including the equities markets. And stocks continue to be so hot and are so wildly overperforming that it's skewing the rest of the data. In other words, a stock market bubble. Really quick, huge thanks to our newest members this week. We've got MRI, Dove Gray, Norcodamus, Anonymous S, 11 Offbeat, Stephen, Angel, PTBRN Chabab, Miss Overmets, and Paulie. So UNFTR is entirely member supported, and these beautiful and courageous individuals pitched in to make unfucking great again. So to find out more about becoming a member, visit UNFTR.com. And if you can't afford to become a member, that's okay. You can still head over to the website and sign up for our free weekly newsletter, access our directory of progressive resources, and so much more. Pod love for this week is from Marxist Voice. The latest episode is The Rise and Fall of the Fourth International. Now, in the lecture, they litigate the successes, the failures, and betrayals of the Fourth International. And these kind of examinations are so important because we can learn from past organizing mistakes as we prepare to battle for true freedom and equality. You know, one of my favorite quotes is from restaurateur Danny Meyer, who said that the road to success is paved with mistakes that were well handled. So we need to be big enough to recognize our own mistakes or examine the mistakes of those who came before us if we're going to chart a bold plan to move forward. That's what conservatives have done so well. They take every setback as an opportunity to learn and find our weaknesses. Now, for book love this week, if you caught my latest video, The End of the American Experiment, you probably heard me quote from this one. It's called Visions of Inequality, From the French Revolution to the End of the Cold War by Branko Milanovic. Now, the book is a sweeping account of how economists from Quinet through Kuznets thought about inequality. And what I love about his analysis is that he stays true to the visions of the great thinkers through the lens of their respective eras, rather than kind of reevaluating them in retrospect and then trying to point out shortcomings. It offers really valuable insight to how they approach socioeconomics and inequality under the conditions of their time. So it's up in our bookshop now, which you can also access at UNFTR.com. Couple of quick takes before we go. I want to turn you on to a young creator who goes by Keith D. I've been following him lately because he's really knowledgeable about crypto, but also into the role that it plays in global finance. So we received a lot of good feedback on our crypto videos lately, and I know that there's a hunger for great information, so consider this one an endorsement. All right, unfuckers, lots to look forward to. We got all those economic releases, the cure for autism, and quite possibly the rapture, which is apparently happening in Arizona. Who knew? Also, check out our drop from over the weekend if you want to know what comes next in Trump's America. And don't forget to like this video and share it with several thousand of your closest Russian bot friends. Anyway, enjoy our member credits played to the original Oh Canada tribute song from our podcast.
Yeah, hey, I'd like some fries with gravy, please. Oh, yeah, you mean poutine. What? I'm in a foreign country, what does this person mean? All I want is disco fries and not this strange cuisine. Hey, excuse me, where's the nearest Starbucks? Oh, there's a Tim Hortons on the corner, eh? And one across the street, another down the road a bit, and one just after that. I've heard of this Tim Horton, but he's not someone I know. Horton has a who, but can he make Frappuccino? Oh! Are you British? Is it always this cold? Why are you sorry? Who's Tim Horton? Do you love or hate Trudeau? Oh, Canada, so many fucking questions. What's a leader? What's a 2-4? Is curling a real sport? How does butter make a tart? Do you all love Martin Short? Oh, yeah. Wow. They honor their dual heritage. On the indigenous. Ouch. Oh, sorry, can I help you? Thank you, my pleasure. Oh, yeah. Do you mean poutine? Everyone is so polite, it's really so obscene. No wonder that the French keep trying to secede. Hi, excuse me, hi, do you have change for $10? Oh, yeah, for sure. I can give you 10 loonies. What? For 5 toonies. Oh, what the fuck is with this money? How can I take it seriously? A loony and a toonie, what does that even buy me? Oh, Canada, so many fucking questions. Do your cops all ride horses? Is the healthcare really free? Can you tell me one more time about Celsius degrees? I don't get it. Oh, Canada, so many fucking questions. Do you really choose to live here? It's so cold, can you not leave? If the metric system works, how do you measure your own feet? Good question. Oh, Canada. Did Alanis Morissette really go down on that guy from Full House in the theater? Oh, yeah, for sure. Wow.